This is a study of 1 Kings chapter 11. We're in the reign of Solomon, and we certainly begin to see his weaknesses. He had three of them, one for wealth, one for weapons, and one for women. Chapter 11, verse 1. But King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites. Now, Ammon, Moab, and Edom would have been Adamic people. However, they were heathen worshippers. These others were Canaanites, and they were told to wipe out Canaanites so that this would not happen in intermarriage. And Deuteronomy 7 and Exodus 7:34, they were told not to enter into marriage with foreign women too. Of the nations concerning which the Lord said unto the children of Israel, Ye shall not go into them, neither shall they come into you, for surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. Solomon clave not unto these in love. And we will see that Solomon will be sneaking out to go up into the groves and worship where these wives have erected altars. 3. And he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. And his heart turn means that he turned away from God. Remember, Solomon asked for wisdom. He was told he could have wealth, protection from his enemies, and a long life, but there was a condition. The condition was to follow my statutes and keep my laws. And Solomon is failing this test. 4. For it came to pass when Solomon was old that his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not perfect with the Lord his God, as was the heart of David his father. Now, David may have been guilty of a number of bad things, but he always loved God and he was forgiven. Psalm 37, his psalm about how grateful he is for a God who forgives. Okay, Solomon, who are these gods? Milcom, later he's called Molech, and Ashtaroth, later called Ishtar, the pagan goddess of Syria, where we get our holiday that we call Easter. It's on the wrong day all over the calendar because it's done in moon time. God doesn't move in moon time. Satan does. God moves in sun time. Fertility. Orgies. That's where we get the bunnies and the eggs associated with Easter, when we should be celebrating Passover 14 days after the spring equinox. That's when Jesus was crucified, not on Easter. That's why it's all over the calendar. Verse 5. For Solomon went after Ashtaroth, the goddess of the Sidonians, yes, Ishtar, called in other places, the goddess of the Zidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. And 1 Corinthians 10:11, Paul tells us that the Old Testament is given to us as warning and as a lesson. And we are learning from Solomon that it is very necessary for us to stay focused on our God and His Word. And Revelation 20 speaks of the second death. We do not want to have to experience that. The first death is a physical death. The second death is a spiritual death. We get to join Satan in the lake of fire and be smoked up from the inside out and forever gone from the presence of God. Verse 7. Then did Solomon build a high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, in the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the children of Ammon. Now, Molech requirement was for child sacrifice. How horrible could it get? And Solomon participated in the worship of these small g gods. 8. And likewise did he for all his strange wives, foreign wives, which burnt incense and sacrificed unto their gods. Now, in that last verse there, ahead of this one, the location of these altars, they were all over the Temple Mount. How sacrilegious of Solomon. Verse 9, and the Lord was angry with Solomon because his heart was turned from the Lord God of Israel, which had appeared unto him twice. 2 times God came to Solomon in a dream. That's not very often in the Bible. You can count on one hand the persons to whom God personally appears. 10. And had commanded him concerning this thing, that he should not go after other gods, but he kept not that which the Lord had commanded. He compromised and went along with the wishes of his foreign wives who were heathens and who were Israelites, Adamic people, but who were heathen worshippers. 11. Wherefore the Lord said unto Solomon, forasmuch as this is done of thee, and thou hast not kept my covenant and my statutes, which I have commanded thee, I will surely rend the kingdom from thee, and I will give it to thy servant. Oh, a servant. Now, God is angry. Nathan the prophet had called Solomon Jedediah. It means loved of God. But he has compromised himself terribly, and the servant, it will be someone who is not from the house of David. It will be to Jeroboam, and he is from the house of Ephraim, and he was forced to help to complete the wall and we will see that Jeroboam will take 10 tribes to the north. These 10 tribes were everyone except Judah and Benjamin. Benjamin and Judah shared a border, and a few Levites. They were carried away by the Assyrians over the Caucasus Mountains, and guess what? Were called Caucasians, and they settled Western Europe, and they don't know most don't know who they are. Number 12. Notwithstanding, in thy days I will not do it for David thy father's sake, but I will rend it out of the hand of thy son. And who was his son? His son was Rehoboam. He came to the kingship, and 10 tribes will be yanked away from him. A terrible, terrible issue in that the 10 tribes and the tribes to the south have never yet been joined. It has been promised that they will be, the two sticks will be put together, but it will be when Jesus comes as the king and not under a man king. So Solomon forfeited grace so he could enter into idolatry. 13. Howbeit I will not rend away all the kingdom, but will give one tribe to thy son for David thy servant's sake, and for Jerusalem's sake, which I have chosen. So he did promise that he would give Judah, David's house, Solomon's house, for David's sake, not for Solomon's, and for the sake of Jerusalem, to stay in the hand, as Jerusalem is God's favorite place in all the universe, we are told. 14. And the Lord stirred up an adversary unto Solomon, Hadad the Edomite. He was of the king's seed in Edom. Now, an Edomite, the red nation, this would have been a descendant of Esau. David defeated them, and Joab then partially, back in Numbers 24, we learned that that was accomplished, but they were not totally wiped out. 15. For it came to pass when David was in Edom, and Joab the captain of the host was gone up to bury the slain after he had smitten every male of Edom. Now, he only slew fighting men. It wasn't a complete extermination. That thought continues into the next verse, 16. For 6 months did Joab remain there with all Israel until he had cut off every male in Edom. One specific area in particular. 17. The adversary Hadad. 17. That Hadad fled, he and certain Edomites of his father's servants with him to go unto Egypt, Hadad being yet a little child. So he went to Egypt. He was taken there, and by others, Edomites, and there is vengeance that will be carried out. 18. And they arose out of Midian and came to Paran, and they took men with them out of Paran, and they came to Egypt, unto Pharaoh the king of Egypt, which gave him a house and appointed him victuals and gave him land. So Paran is a desert area between the Sinai and southern Israel. And this means he would have hired guides. And Midian is that area. Midian was a child born to Keturah and Abraham. Verse 19. And Hadad found great favor in the sight of Pharaoh, so that he gave him to wife the sister of his own wife, the sister of Tabonneah, the queen. Now, this would have been a close kin, and this is God behind here. It said, who set forth this adversary? God did. God set forth the adversary. 20. Just as, let me bring up Samson. They were told not to marry and into a foreign wife, but Samson did, and it was God's design because he needed someone on the inside of the Philistine peoples. 20. And the sister of Tabonneah bare him Ganuath, his son, whom Tabonneah weaned in Pharaoh's house, and Jehoshaphat was in Pharaoh's household and among the sons of Pharaoh. So this son of Hadad is going to be raised up just as if he were a son of Pharaoh. 21. And when Hadad heard in Egypt that David slept with his fathers and that Joab, the captain of the host, was dead, Hadad said to Pharaoh, let me depart, and I may go to mine own people. He knows that Israel is weak. 22. Then Pharaoh said unto him, but what hast thou lacked with me, that behold thou seekest to go into thine own country? And he answered, nothing. Howbeit, let me go in any wise. So he's saying to Pharaoh, I didn't want for anything, but I need to go. 23. And God stirred him up another adversary, Rezon, the son of Eladah, which fled from his lord Hadadezer, king of Zoab. This would have been Syria to the north. David partially took these people, but not all. 24. And he gathered men unto him and became captain over a band when David slew them of Zobah. And they went to Damascus and dwelt there and reigned in Damascus. So after David, they were just marauding bands after David and not an organized army. 25. And he was an adversary to Israel all the days of Solomon, besides his mischief that Hadad did, and he abhorred Israel and reigned over Syria. Hate toward Israel, Hadad and Rezon. 26. And Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, an Ephraimite of Zariah, Solomon's servant. How was he Solomon's servant? He was made to work for the king, whose mother's name was Zeruiah, a widow woman, even he lifted up his hand against the king. So this Edomite, now he's not one of these that was supposed to be not an Edomite, excuse me, of the house of Ephraim. He was an Ephraimite, a brother, but he rose up against the king because he was tired of being forced to work for the king. 27. And this was the cause that he lifted up his hand against the king. Solomon built Millo and repaired the breaches of the city of David, his father. Now, this he didn't repair. What he did, the interior, that of the temple, the walls did not include all these new buildings, and these had to, the walls were enlarged, and if this Ephraimite had to work on that wall. Verse 27, and that I would point out 27, and this was the cause that he lifted up his hand against the king. Solomon built Millo and repaired the breaches of the city of David. I want to point out that there's a statement and then an explanation. I repeated that verse so that I could point out that this is typical Hebrew literary device, a statement and then an explanation. So the repair there, they're simply enclosing everything that had been built under Solomon, and this was a levy against these peoples who had to work for the king. 28. And the man, Jeroboam, was a mighty man of valor. And Solomon, seeing the young man that he was industrious, he made him ruler all of the charge of the house of Joseph. So he was promoted over Joseph. And remember that Joseph was given a double blessing that would include those descendants of Manasseh, his son, and Ephraim. So Jeroboam has been promoted over all of the house of Joseph. 29. And it came to pass at that time, when Jeroboam went out of Jerusalem, that the prophet Ahiah, the Shilonite, found him in the way, and he had clad himself in a new garment, and they were alone in the field. Now this Ahiah is a Shiloh, from Shiloh, and if you think Shiloh was the place where the tabernacle, Mosaic tabernacle, was originally there in Shiloh, and he has a new garment, and this is symbolic. 30. And Ahiah caught the new garment that was on him and rent it in 12 pieces. Those 12 pieces will be symbolic of the 12 tribes. 31. And he said to Jeroboam, take thee 10 pieces, for thus saith the Lord God of Israel, behold, I will rend the kingdom out of the hand of Solomon, and will give 10 tribes to thee. The 10 tribes that went north and who were taken 200 years before Judah was carried away to Babylon. They never came back. Remember that Judah came back. 32. But he, that's Solomon, shall have one tribe for my servant David's sake, Judah. And for Jerusalem's sake, the city which I have chosen out of all the tribes of Israel. Judah was chosen for the kings, and Jesus was a descendant of Judah and David, but not Solomon. Solomon's brother Nathan, also the child of Bathsheba. 33, because that they have forsaken me, God speaking, and have worshipped Ashtaroth, the goddess of Zidonians, Chemosh, the god of the Moabites, and Milcom, the god of the children of Ammon, and have not walked in my ways, to do that which is right in mine eyes, and to keep my statutes and my commandments, my judgments, as did David his father. Now, remember that Levites, I said there were a few Levites that were in the south and in the north. That is because the Levites had been scattered amongst all the 12 tribes, so that every tribe could have a Levitical priest. 34. Howbeit, I will not take the whole kingdom of his hand, but I will make him prince all the days of his life for David my servant's sake, whom I chose, because he kept my commandments and my statutes. And he did wrong, but he repented, and he always loved God. 34. And now he gives the condition. Howbeit, I will take the whole kingdom out of his hand, and I will make him prince of, I did that 35, but I will take the kingdom out of his son's hand, and will give it unto thee, even 10 tribes. 36. And unto his son will I give one tribe, that David my servant may have a light away before me in Jerusalem, the city which I have chosen me to put my name there. Jerusalem, a very important part of God's favorite place in the universe. 37. And I will take thee, that's Rehoboam, and thou shalt reign according to all thy soul desireth, and shall be king over Israel. So they became known then as Israel and Judah, a split nation. And why? For idol worship and for a leader that led them astray, a leader who mistreated many of them. 38. And it shall be, if, here's the condition, thou wilt hearken unto all that I command thee, and wilt walk in my ways, and do that is right in my sight, to keep my statutes and my commandments, as David my servant did, that I will be with thee, and build thee a sure house, as I built for David, and will give Israel unto thee. Well, did Rehoboam keep the commandments? Well, we will learn that he said, oh, well, you don't need to go down to Jerusalem for the holy days. We'll have 2 calves, golden calves, and you should go to the calves and worship. And what happened? Up in time, there was no more Israel. 30. 9. And I will for this afflict the seed of David, but not forever. No, he won't afflict the seed of David forever. And this will be the two sticks that will join with Jesus, King of Kings and Lord of Lords, House of David, in the beginning of the millennium. Those golden calves, that he put one in Dan to the north and one in Bethel to the south, so that they could worship without having to go to Jerusalem. 40. Solomon sought therefore to kill Jeroboam. And Jeroboam arose and fled into Egypt, into Shakashak, king of Egypt, and was in Egypt until the death of Solomon, exiled himself to save his life. Verse 41. And the rest of the acts of Solomon and all that he did, and his wisdom, are they not written in the book of the Acts of Solomon? That's a little bit confusing. The which book? Bollinger has a writing on this, and it's this book of Kings that we are reading. 42. And the time that Solomon reigned in Jerusalem over all Israel was 40 years. 40 years, the last of a united kingdom. He came on the throne when he was about 19, so he would have died 40 years later, the number of probation, and he did not get the long life that was part of that covenant because he broke God's statutes and judgments. Verse 41 to complete this 11th chapter of Kings. And Solomon slept with his father and was buried in the city of David the father in Jerusalem. And Rehoboam his son reigned in his stead. And I would point out that Rehoboam means enlarger of people. Thank you for listening. Our next lesson will cover 12 and possibly 13 of 1 Kings. Thank you for viewing.